Hello and thank you for joining us on Newsweek, where we highlight some of the biggest stories that made the headlines recently. I am Jacinta Agochukwu. This week, results so far announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission from Saturday's governorship and Houses of Assembly elections have seen the ruling All Progressive Congress celebrating big wins across the country and reasserting itself in power. Also this week, the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, has threatened to embark on a strike if the cash crunch, fuel scarcity and electricity tariff increase are not addressed. And later on the show, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has commended the House of Representatives for rejecting a bill seeking to legalize the cultivation, sale and use of cannabis, also known as marijuana, for commercial purposes. All details in a moment. Stay with us. We begin with politics, where earlier in the week, the heated governorship race in almost all the 28 out of 36 states where election held finally ended. All the results so far declared shows the ruling All Progressive Congress APC winning 15 states. People Democratic Party has 9, and Labour Party and New Nigerian People's Party have 1 state each, while election in Adamawa and Kebbi State were both declared inconclusive by INEC. The anointed candidates of the Kano State Governor Umaru Ganduje, Simon Lalong, Aminu Tambuwal Sokoto, and Samuel Term of Benue were defeated by the opposition parties. In sweeping victories, many APC governors secured re-election across the 6 geopolitical zones with extensive triumph at the state assemblies. APC governors who secured re-election included Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State, Inowa Yahaya of Gombe, Maimala Buni of Yobe, Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa, Dabwa Biodun of Ogun, Abdul Rahman Abdul Razak of Kwara, and Babagana Zulum of Borno State. For the People's Democratic Party, PDP, there were 9 victories, including 2 returning governors, Sheyi Makinde of Oyo and Bala Mohammed of Bauchi. Now joining me in the studio is Justice Ojeno, a lawyer and political analyst. I also have Niyi Saliu, a political analyst via Zoom. Niyi, are you there? Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Niyi.
Good evening. I'm here. Thank you for having me.
All right, welcome to the show. Let me begin with you. Let's have your take on APC taking the lead with 15 states, PDP with 9 states, Labour Party and New Nigerian People's Party and MPP with 1 state each. Any surprises?
No. I will tell you that our democracy is evolving. It shows that the Nigerian electorate is becoming more aware and more involved in the state of play. The first election we had, the presidential election, you will notice a different pattern from the governorship election. In the presidential election, the party like Labour Party, for instance, won about 11 states. Even PDP was very competitive. Now, this is a different ballgame entirely. States like Oyo, for instance, the first election, the APC won. The second election, the PDP won. So it just shows that gradually the Nigerian electorate is becoming more aware, is becoming very capable of, voting in different patterns along the same election, depending on the candidates that are in a particular election. So for me, it's a challenge to the average politician who is campaigning to sell himself a lot more to the people and show that he has things to offer. So there are no surprises. There are no surprises at all. It just goes to show again that politics is local. In the last election, you just said now, and that is what's on record, that APC has won about 15 states. There are 2 states, for instance, that the INEC has declared inconclusive. For instance, those two states, Adamawa in the first election was won by PDP almost in a landslide. But here, it's becoming a struggle for PDP to win again. In fact, the news that came out for us was that APC has won the state. It said like Ogun State, for instance, APC won a landslide in the presidential election. When it came to the governorship election, it became very close. I think the governor won with about 3,000 votes. So it shows the different pattern in the behavior of the average electorate. And it's a very good development for our country. It will put a lot of politicians on their toes. And it shows that even no matter what the education, level of education of the average voter is, he knows the difference between one candidate and the other. Then, of course, because politics is local, and the governorship and the House of Assembly election were more grassroots than the first election. So it was more competitive. The people that put themselves up for election in that election were people known to the average electorate in their different constituencies. They were very close to them, and they had different choices. More parties participated at that level. So it became very stiff and competitive. Even Labour Party that won about 11 states in the presidential election was only able to win Abia State, one state. And you can see that's a far cry from the initial about 11 that they won. So it shows a major shift in the behavior of the average, voter in Nigeria. And if you ask me, it's a very, very good development.
All right, I will get back to you. Let me come to you, Justice. What are your impressions about the outcome of Kebbi and Adamawa State and how INEC handled the whole situation there?
Okay, for me, I think that they were mature in the way they handled it, and they were compelled by provisions of the law to handle it in the way they handled it, because if they had gone ahead to actually declare based on what was on ground, they would have really flouted the provisions of the law. The principle in Section 62 of the Electoral Act that talks about the margin of lead principle. There are times when and margin of lead simply means that if the votes that are still yet to be cast, or maybe there was violence, there were cancellations at a polling unit or a set of polling units that amalgamates to a ward or local government, that if those numbers have the capacity to swing the election in a particular way or otherwise, then the electoral officer, returning officer, must declare the election inconclusive, and of course supplementary election be conducted in order that definitely and finally a person who scores the lawful votes, the majority of the lawful votes cast, eventually comes up to be the winner. But again, the Binyani woman in Adamawa is saying that some of the votes that have already been counted for Fintiri of PDP are votes that result out of violence, stuffing of ballot boxes and all that. Those votes should, pursuant to Section 65 of the Electoral Act, be cancelled. INEC has that power, especially the Commission has the power, pursuant to Section 65, to review elections if it checks all the surrounding circumstances. So Binani is asking that be done. We don't know whether that will still be done because there's still the 7-day period. So within the 7-day period, maybe after a 7-day period, we'll be able to say, okay, maybe INEC allowed Fintiri to actually go ahead with the votes that he already has, which will make victory very, very easy for him. So I think that it is high time for INEC to actually take the bull by the horns and do what's needful.
All right, Niyin, I'm back to you now. The issue of irregularities INEC has pointed out in 18 local government areas. What would you like to see amended in the Electoral Act to tackle some of these issues?
Look, the laws are there. There is the issue of an amendment does not even arise. This is the issue of implementation of the laws. There are laws that are taking care of, electoral offenders. So it is when these laws are, implemented to the latter, that's when you see that people will be very careful during an election. The greatest inducement to crime is impunity. If people continue to go scot-free when they commit offenses, that are being punished by stipulated laws, then you continue to see this kind of act. So for me, it is not an issue of amendment of existing laws. The issue is implementing the dictates of the existing laws. That's what it is. So if people have committed electoral offenses and are punishable under several sections of the Electoral Act, as amended already, so they should just implement the law and punish those people. And there are several, punishment that have been stipulated. So it will depend on the level of crime. So we have had election last 2-3 weeks. INEC should show that they are, they have the will to, to pursue some of these things by actually trying those people. I heard one of the former senators complaining that the people that were arrested somewhere in Kano have not been charged. In fact, some of them have been released. When you're going to hear news like this, it will give impetus to would-be offenders to go ahead and commit such offenses. So the issue is not, creating new laws or amending the existing one. The issue is implementing the existing one and punishing offenders.
All right, Niyi, we still have a lot to talk about, but right now we will take a short break and Newsweek continues in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's still Newsweek, where we discuss the biggest stories that made the headlines in the week. Now, the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has threatened to embark on a strike if the cash crunch, fuel scarcity and electricity tariff increase are not addressed. In a communique by NLC at the end of its Central Working Committee meeting in Abuja, the Congress said the challenges were among the issues that raised the most concerns. The Labour Union says poor implementation of the Naira redesign policy has caused considerable pain and hardship to the people. The National President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajeros, charged the federal government to immediately take action to cushion the hardship of the cash crunch, fuel scarcity, and high cost of electricity tariff on Nigerians. Well, I still have with me in the studio Justice Ojeno and a lawyer in the via Zoom. I'm sorry. I have Niyi here via Zoom, and I also have Ojeno here in the studio. So let's go on with the question. Let me come to you, Justice. Do you think this is the right time to embark on this strike, considering the fact Nigerians are still battling with the issue of the Naira scarcity, fuel scarcity, and all of that? Is this really the right time? Okay,
point blank, I think it's the right time. If we recollect, Joe Ajero actually threatened to do before the election, and we all cried and advised that he should deter it to this time. It looks like because he has started it, CBN is now actually backtracking. For the first time in a while, they actually told the banks to open on a Saturday and Sunday, which is yesterday and today, for the purpose of distributing cash. I know it's hard, but it looks like we are back to, if we have institutional memory, it looks like we are back to the heydays of NLC as it was when it was the social engineer as an organization, when it was using its instrumentality of unionization to actually picket during the time of Oshomole, when technically it was the alternative president that made things well. Because it looks like when the current people are in power, they are not feeling the pulse of the people. They are not feeling the heat, the pains that people are going through. So with this Joe Ajero, which I have already said on this platform, I think the last time I was here, or the penultimate time I was here, that is a tough nut to crack, and it's gonna bring NLC to what it ought to be, which is some of the fighters and defenders, effective institutional defender of the masses.
All right, let me come to you, Niyi. I want to have your third. Do you think going on strike, or rather than going on strike, what other means do you think NLC can intervene to ensure Nigerians are not inflicted more with pains?
One of the ways check whether the people are really going through tough times is the restiveness of the labor movement in the country. Well, with due respect, I'll say the current labor movement in Nigeria is the most passive in the history of this country. You easily recall the time of Adams Oshiomhole at the helm of affair of labor and all the struggles they went through, even at the toughest of times when they had to face, military dictatorship, a lot of challenges. They still were able to speak for the masses. They were able to do a lot of things to check the government then. So the labor union is a partner, of progress with government. And, the conduct of the current labor union in Nigeria has really not encouraged, any support from the masses. Having said that, I will not at this time support any mass action. The economy is stretched already. The people are going through a lot of punishment with this Naira policy. So, and we just had an election. A new government will be installed in about 2 or 3 months from now. So we cannot bring this country to its knees ahead of that inauguration. What I think the labor movement can do now is to continue with the cat and stick approach, issue the threats, ahead we're going to picket this central bank offices nationwide. They can do that. They can shout. They can make a lot of noise, so at least that they can put CBN on its toes. But any action, beyond that will bring the economy of the country to its toes, to its knees, and that will not go well for the common man who are already suffering due to some of these policies that are very hard on the populace. So they should wear their thinking cap and partner rather than confronting the institutions.
All right, Niyi, we all know this administration is packing up already, but do you think they are doing enough to have this issue nip in the bud?
Well, government will continue. Yes, they are packing up. Of course, they've done so much already. The president has issued, directives upon directives. The CBN, the current CBN, has not shown enough bite, in the implementation of this policy. So it's very tough to determine which arm of government is not doing enough. The presidency will issue a directive today. They will assure, the country that they are on top of it. This will get easier, but we haven't seen anything of such. They have alleged a lot of sabotage here, and the elections are over now. I don't think there's anyone out there that is sabotaging anybody now. The position that they have alleged that, taking all the money to, buy elections are no longer contesting elections. Still, the problem persists. So it means that there is a problem somewhere in the CBN with implementation. Banks are working from morning till evening, 24/7, 7 days of the week. And there's a problem. The new notes and old notes are being circulated and recirculated. See, we haven't resolved the issue. So for me, I will put the blame squarely at the doors of the CBN. And the encouragement I will give them is, I don't know what they're doing there. If they are partisan, there's no reason any longer to be partisan. They should look at the sufferings of the masses
wrap up on this
and
topic.
do their job.
All right, let's go to our final story for tonight. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has commended some members of House of Representatives for disagreeing with the 3 of their colleagues over a bill seeking to legalize the cultivation, sale, and use of cannabis, also known as marijuana, for commercial purposes. Reacting to the development on Friday, the chairman of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, retired, commended members and leaders of the House for rejecting what he tagged another attempt to push through a bill to decriminalize cannabis cultivation, sale and use in Nigeria on the floor of the Green Chamber of the National Assembly. The House had on Thursday voted down the bill unanimously sponsored by Benjamin Kalu and Olumide Osoba and Miriam Onoha. Apart from the Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, and the sponsors, all those who spoke at the second reading on Thursday criticized the bill. Still with me to discuss this is Niye via Zoom and political analyst, lawyer, I beg your pardon, I keep missing this up, I beg your pardon, Justice. Let's have your take on this. Cultivation, sale and use of marijuana in Nigeria has been stepped down. What do you make of this?
Okay, for me, I actually think that it's a matter that is, it may sound controversial, I think it's a matter that is deserving of debate. I say that because about 2 months ago or 3 months ago, I can't exactly recollect now, Nigeria was ranked as the highest user of cannabis, despite the fact that it is illegal in our neck of the wood. In America, largely, to a large extent, it's actually legal at state level. There's pressure on the president at the time Obama and this time on Biden to actually sign it at the federal level to make it legal. There are more than 300 million. Yeah, they don't have as many people who are using it or abusing it, even though in our neck of the wood it's actually illegal. Why? That's hypocrisy. Maybe if we have an argument around it, maybe if we check what are the benefits, what are the demerits of actually commercializing or using, because if we recall, when you ban things, curiosity makes people want to try it. You remember the 1920s, the Prohibition era, when alcohol was banned. That was when people like Al Capone, popularly known as Al Capone, started the mafia situation, and alcohol became something that made people rich, and mafias, as we know it now, were born at the time. If you ban it, if you put restrictions on it, maybe that's why we are still the leaders in use and abuse of the substance. Maybe if you liberalize it and people know the benefits of it, people will not be curious to go and use it, or mafias or people who benefit from actually illegally dealing in it will not be able to have commercial success by dealing with these things. Let's check it. Those countries that have legalized it, yeah, we see that they have psychoactive issues, they have drug issues, but it is not marijuana. We know it's fentanyl. We know it is meth and all these other higher ones. It's not marijuana at all. So maybe there should be an argument in this regard. I don't use it. I don't admonish the use of it. But legalizing or illegalizing or punishing people for using it can actually, maybe that's the reason why we are actually the highest user. We are the highest users of it.
All right, Niyi, let me come to you in a few seconds. We are almost out of time. Part of what General Marwa pointed out is the issue of insecurity, saying Nigerians cannot afford to permit the cultivation, sale, and use of the most abused illicit drug. What do you think?
Nigeria is a leading, fighter against usage and trafficking of illicit drugs. So we can't be fighting drugs on one side and be legalizing it on another hand. Pure and simple, marijuana is very dangerous to health. We have seen a lot of youths that have abused it and what they have become. My own advice, prescription by an approved hospital or a medical center. It is not the kind of drug that should be found on the street or it should be grown in Nigeria. We do not have the capacity to contain the problem that it will create for our youth. So there is no need, and I commend the National Assembly for standing it down. And I side with Colonel Mawa for celebrating it. Yeah, there's a lot of achievement that we have recorded in the area of fighting illicit drugs in Nigeria, trafficking and abuse. of such substance. So we cannot, through the National Assembly, legalize it. So it's dangerous. Even in the U.S., where some states have approved it, they have approved it only for medical purposes. And where such does not arise, we shouldn't. And it's a different environment, by the way.
Lee, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you very much, Niyi Saliu, a political analyst who's joined us via Zoom. Thank you for your contribution, as usual.
Thank you very much for having me. All
right. I also want to thank you, Justice Ojeno, a lawyer who joined us, who gave massive contribution to this topics. Thank you for coming.
It's my pleasure.
All right. And as well, thank you for being part of the show. That's the show for today. Remember, you can follow the conversation on our social media platforms at TVC News NG or on our website at tvcnews.tv. I am Jacinta Agochukwu. Until next week, it's goodbye.